Добрый день, дорогие друзья, добрый вечер, кто когда смотрит нашу программу. В эфире Владимир Фойгельман, Центр Макор и наша программа «Все о яичнице». Сегодня я буду разговаривать с очень интересным человеком, с которым мы знакомы уже давно, но вот стали более тесно общаться совсем недавно, меньше года назад. Живем мы по соседству. И этот человек, раввин синагоги Shaloh House здесь, в городе Стoughton, это на юге Массачусетса, где и я живу. И я вам хочу сказать только одно, что с семьей раввина меня связывают многие года знакомства и взаимного сотрудничества, начиная еще с конца 90-х годов. И мы поговорим о многом об этом. А сейчас я, с вашего разрешения, перейду на английский, и мы начнем разговор с раввином. Okay, hi Rabbi, how are you doing these uncertain days? And I would like to introduce to you Rabbi Mendel Gurkow. Hi Rabbi.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, maybe somebody will watch us later that night, but anyway. Rabbi, a little bit tell us about yourself. You are a rabbi. How long are you already a rabbi? And probably afterwards a little bit about your family, because I know your family beginning to 1998, I believe. Your father yet was a big admirer of my dances and my performance. He saw me several times in Brighton. But with you we met also many first time many years ago. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and about Gurkow's family.
Thank you. I have been a rabbi for over 32 years at Shaloh House in Stoughton, which is a Chabad center, like thousands of Chabad centers around the world. And as you mentioned, my father was the one who founded Shaloh House as part of Chabad, which started in the early 60s in Mattapan, went on to Milton. It was primarily a day school, and it branched out to many other Chabad activities, and eventually it opened up in Stoughton in the late 70s, and I've been here in Stoughton for over 32 years, doing a lot of outreach work, educational work, and in a very special Chabad style that everybody probably is familiar with and has engaged with at some time or another.
Can you tell me the story how your father decided to open this chain Shaloh House, because it's in Stoughton, very famous Shaloh House with Rabbi Dan Rodkin in Brighton. Before it was Zalman Gurkow, as I remember correctly.
Yes.
But you have also one Shaloh House in Metro West area with another brother. Something else, some other location?
Well, Shaloh House, that is probably it, but there's so many other Chabad centers in this part of Massachusetts, as well as other parts of Massachusetts and all around the world. The way it started is a very natural Chabad pattern, which is if you're part of the Chabad movement or Hasidic movement, you are raised with very deep philosophical teachings, which talks about the root of your life, the root of God, the root of Torah, and that eventually inspires one to move forward and to be driven to engage and to cultivate every single Jew. And that was the teaching of the Lubavitcher Rebbe for many years, and he inspired his followers to do the same. So my father, as a very devout follower of the Rebbe, was deeply driven to start or participate in Chabad activities wherever it was, and Boston became the place. And slowly developed to where it was over the many years. As you mentioned, it started in Mattapan, went on to Milton, and then Brighton, and now in Stoughton. And it's all part of the very same philosophy that we follow, which is understanding the depth of the soul of every Jew, the value, the quality, and the natural drive to engage and cultivate and bring us all to a better Jewish life.
Why I want to ask you this question, of course I can ask Dan Rodkin, but he came to Shaloh House together with me. I was even earlier than him to performing at Shaloh House in Brighton. But the story, what I was told, what your father told me, what the Brighton location was chosen by Lubavitch Rebbe. Is that correct? Especially for Russian-speaking Jews.
Hard to say. I wasn't involved in that acquisition or that choice. My father did not do anything without the consent of the Lubavitch Rebbe. So whichever decision he would make, any move he would make, he would seek the blessing of the Rebbe. And when the Rebbe gave him the blessing, he knew that that was the Rebbe's wish, and that's what he went with.
Is your father was close to Lubavitch Rebbe, really close to Lubavitch Rebbe? Or?
Well, you can say yes and no. Nobody's really close or nobody's really far from the Lubavitch Rebbe. The Lubavitch Rebbe as a person, and the more you knew him, was superior in many ways than anybody else. And nobody feels close to him. They feel privileged to be learning with him and praying with him. So to say close, nobody will say they're close, but we have all really enjoyed or been privileged to listen and learn from his teachings, pray with him, and whichever way, shape, or form, engage with him. My father being from an older generation, and when Chabad was kind of smaller during his days, of course, everybody got more direct attention from the Rebbe. As Chabad grew over the years and became more and more, you felt less, there was less of that direct attention. But regardless, everybody feels very strongly connected because we all feel as the Rebbe being our father and wishes the best for us and wants the best for us and prays for us all the time. So in that respect, we're all very close to him.
I see. Right now, I want to ask you, before I ask you next my question, I want to ask you, I'm from Ukraine, from Kiev. Lubavitch is a Ukraine, of course. Chabad Lubavitch started with Lubavitch Rebbe in Ukraine. And have your family story with Chabad Lubavitch there, then, at those long time ago?
Certainly. I come from a very long chain of Chabad family, many generations. As far as I can go, it was all Chabad, and each one of my family members, my parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, were all engaged with the Chabad Rebbe of that generation. Today, there are so many newcomers to Chabad who don't have that Chabad root in their family. That's fine. But I happen to be from a long generations of Chabad family who've always been, Chabad has always been in their blood. And so it has been in my blood, in my upbringing, in my childhood, and as I continue growing, in the same with my children and my family and grandchildren as well. Chabad is within our spirit, in our blood, in every aspect and every moment of our life.
I ask you, when your family left Ukraine and came to United States?
My family left Ukraine, of course, when the Second World War broke out. Everyone fled east to Samarkand, Tashkent, that part of Russia, to run further away from the Germans. And after the war was over, thousands of Chabad families were able to flee Russia by forging Polish passports because Polacks were allowed to leave Russia. And that's how many, many families left after 1945, 45, 46. And they all left towards Germany, Austria, and came into absorption camps in Germany, controlled by the United States. Eventually, either went to France, England, Israel, or the United States. And my family made it to France and spent a few years there, and then to the United States.
Okay. And your family before lived in Ukraine?
Kharkov, right.
In Kharkov. Oh, almost capital.
That's right.
Rabbi, tell me, when you were a child, how often you were able to see Lubavitch Rebbe?
My father always we always spent the holidays in New York because I have family there. My grandmother was there. And when you spend your holidays in New York, in Crown Heights, where the Rebbe is, you pray with him during the services. You participate in his talks. You always following because he's so special, so dear to you, and that endearment is passed on from your parents. You follow. You follow the ongoings of the Rebbe. So I have had, from my early childhood, an experience of following, participating, listening, whether I understood or not, depended on my age and my development, but that kept on growing as life went on. But I definitely had a very early experience with following the Rebbe in my life.
And now question, what I would love to ask you. Why or when you decided to become a rabbi? Or also, do you have a chain of rabbis in your family, like your grandfathers, grandfathers?
Well, for our family to be rabbis is like to any other family to have a college degree. It's part of our upbringing and our expectation, and my own personal expectation. So as you go through your yeshiva world, where you have a very strong regimen of learning, that automatically feeds you into the rabbinical course and you become a rabbi. Whether you choose to take a pulpit or not is a different choice, but most people take that degree. And for me, it was a natural thing for me to follow my father's footsteps to become not just a Chabad rabbi, but we use today the term shaliach. And shaliach means a messenger or an emissary of the Rebbe, of following the Rebbe's guidelines or wishes to reach out to other Jews who can use guidance and closeness and cultivation and engagement to enhance their Jewish experience.
Cool. I met many rabbis during in Ukraine, in Kiev. Several of them came as a shaliachs to Kiev. Also, very famous right now here is Rabbi Shmuel Kamenetsky from Dnepropetrovsk, who also came as a rabbi shaliach to Ukraine and become a very successful one. We are sister cities right now, Jewish community in Boston and the Jewish community in Dnieper, right? Dnep, right, how it's called in English. The story of shaliachs are very interesting. Tell me, what is your perspective of shaliach and Shaloh House in Stoughton, how it works, how you bring people, make them interested to come to your school? Because everybody can call it, I am shaliach, but I saw in your shul so warm atmosphere, so let's say home atmosphere. That's why I really liked your shul, because it's really warm. It's really, you feel like you're not somewhere in official place. You open your heart when you among others who's coming to your shul. How you will get it?
Well, thank you very much for those very kind words. I very much appreciate it. Well, the warmth and comfort is only a natural thing for me. That's who I am, and I can't change that. So when someone comes into to where I am, I try to give who I am as a natural person. But you can be very natural and warm and be all by yourself in your home or in your synagogue. You definitely need to have a good marketing and business plan. And as years went on, Chabad has learned and has become very good in this marketing and business. And we always had to have that plan throughout all the years. And it's about establishing yourself in all media outlets, creating very exciting and attractive programs that will fill a very strong need or a void that you find in the community. Today, we have a preschool, which brings a lot of families into a very highly professional preschool. The synagogue has grown over the years really by using the philosophy of one Jew at a time. I always use my line, one yid at a time, $1 at a time, one smile at a time. And so just creating a relationship with one Jew at a time and inviting them in. Mostly it's not really my speeches that inspires, it's not really my prayers, it's the kiddush after davening that is probably most important, that brings people together. There is an informal relationship there. You feel like family, and that spills over in the other parts of the services and everything else you do. You have to have a professionally run organization. You have to have it should be, the facility should look nice and proper and inviting, but all those are exterior things. The inner aspect is really that you mentioned, the warmth and the friendship. And the reason for that warmth is not just because I'm a nice person. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Some people will say I am, some people will say I'm not. But it really comes from a place of a strong belief and realization that every Jew is so precious, regardless of who he or she is, regardless of whatever religious level or conviction they have. They may not even believe in God or even believe in Chabad. It doesn't matter to me. You are a Jew. You possess a very special part of God, and the Rebbe had driven into our minds and our fabric that we automatically are drawn to another Jew because that Jew is so special. It's like a diamond. And when you meet a diamond, it's precious and you give yourself to it. And that's my natural drive to give myself to another Jew. And that translates in how people see that warmth. It's not really my physical warmth, it's my inner drive that I have, and every shliach has, for another Jew. And that's really deeply rooted in the in philosophy of Chabad, the intellectual thinking of Chabad, teachings of Chabad, and it translates into all the activity. The big Chabad machine you see around the world is all rooted in that very deep philosophy that every Jew possesses a mountain, a tremendous value of a godly presence.
Rabbi, I see the Mexican hat on your closet or file folder. That's interesting. This brings me like to want to do a conversation. You know, Center Makor, we are mostly dedicated to Jewish life, Jewish culture, Jewish education. what if you have person who are not very much religious or to praying every day or every Shabbat? If such person can find something cultural, educational, let's say put Mexican hat on and do some Mexican dance, for example, just for joke. But something spiritual, let's say, not only prayer, but something more like Jewish life inside your shul. Is it possible? It will be interesting for other people who's not very religious, especially, Russian-speaking Jews are not that much religious people. It's fortunately was taken from us for 70 years.
So your question is, I'm sorry.
About how, if person not very religious, what it can find inside your shul, like culture, education, feeling of center, Jewish home, something like that. But he's not very much related to prayer.
Doesn't have to be prayer. As I said before, it can be challah, some grape juice, some wine, some gefilte fish, some cholent. It could be anything. Let's sit down and have a l'chaim. Let's eat together. Let's celebrate. Let's do whatever you want. I am not trying to force any religious down anybody's throat. I'm trying to just be Jewish and have a Jewish experience. And slowly, when a person sees forget the word. The person sees that there is no expectation, and there is no rule, and there is just a very informal situation. Then slowly the person may inquire a little more. There's something deeper here, and may inquire a little further. You don't have to come and pray. There are many people who are connected with our Chabad Center and don't come to pray, and don't even come to our classes. And those are the most exciting for me, because there is an avenue there to explore inside that person that can go much further. To a certain extent, to be limited and boxed in prayer sometimes excludes anything outside prayer. And there is so much in Judaism that is outside prayer. Prayer is nice and it's important, especially certain days in the year, and we pray 3 times a day. But if Judaism is all about prayer and attending certain classes, then we are ignoring so much that is outside it and brings so much color to our Judaism. And just simple informal conversation, informal experience, parties, sharing cheese blintzes on Shavuos, or sharing hot dogs on Lag Omer, or some matzah on Pesach, that is more Chabad and more Jewish than prayer and classes. I tell many people all the time, Shaloh House is not a synagogue. Shaloh House is not a school. Shaloh House is not a preschool. It's a Jewish Jewish outreach center. It's a Jewish outreach center that also has a synagogue. It's a Jewish outreach center that also has classes for adults and classes for children. But it's not that doesn't define Shaloh House. What defines Shaloh House in any Chabad center is the fact that we're there to outreach. Whatever it takes to outreach, whether it is a cheese blintz, whether it is a hot dog, whether it is a l'chaim on good vodka, it doesn't matter. But it's outreach. It's warming Jewish people up to realize a greater experience. That very experience you talked about, coming in and feeling warm, that's all you need. Forget about the prayer. Forget about the song. That's nice. But feeling warmed up, That's what we're looking for, warming up another Jew, and that can lead a Jew to whichever direction they choose to go in a very Jewish way. That's fine.
Great. From here, of course, there are some holidays coming up next couple of weeks. Can you tell us a little bit about them, and especially in sense of what you just said, how people can celebrate them at home, also like a holiday, not maybe with all prayers what need to be done, or but more traditionally, or even somebody want to do it first time, especially in our Russian-speaking community. Many people might consider to do it right now at home because they have nothing to do.
Well, there are a few holidays coming up. These holidays are not any of the higher popular holidays or well-known holidays, but still important nonetheless. Tomorrow is an important day. It is called Lag BaOmer. Many have heard of it, many have not. It's not a major holiday. It's not the kind of holiday where you go to services and have special prayers, but rather it's a day of outing, especially for children. Lag BaOmer is very famous for parades, for children's shows, for Jewish pride. Loving a fellow Jew is another symbol of Lag BaOmer. And to give a little background in Lag BaOmer, why it is celebrated, there are two reasons. First of all, there was a great sage in the times of the Talmud whose name was Rabbi Akiva. Many people may be familiar with Rabbi Akiva. He has a tremendous, wonderful story. And the story of Rabbi Akiva was that he was a very poor, ignorant shepherd who married a woman from a very, very rich family, of the richest families in Israel. And while he always wanted to be a scholar, always wanted to learn, but he never had the opportunity to learn since he came from a very poor background. But at the age of 40, being so frustrated and wanting to learn, as he watched water dripping on a rock, and that water slowly forced a hole in the rock, he realized if water can form a hole in the rock, no doubt Torah can penetrate through my head. And seeing that, he immediately left everything and ran off to a yeshiva and began learning from really very elementary style learning, reading and Bible and so on. He continued learning and learning to the point that he began becoming a teacher, and he became a teacher of 24,000 students. After 24 years, he had 24,000. Very, very famous rabbi. That's a great personal story about him. But what happened was that his students lacked respect for each other in their learning and acceptance of their colleagues' opinions. They lacked that respect, and as a result, a plague broke out amongst them, and many of them died.
Yeah, it's like a pandemic today.
Exactly. So many, but all of them died, except for very few. And it was during these days between Passover, which was last month, and Shavuos, which is coming up next in a few weeks, actually until tomorrow, Lag BaOmer, these were the days that they died, and tomorrow was the day that they stopped dying. So that's why we celebrate tomorrow, which is the day they stopped dying, as a day of celebration and recognition that we do have to respect each other. And we also preach the line of Rabbi Akiva, who always, his famous line was that the most important principle in Judaism is to love your fellow friend like yourself. That is the most important principle, which is basically the same line we talked about before. More important than praying, more important than learning, is loving and cultivating and giving attention to another Jew. And so that becomes a spirit on Lag BaOmer, a day of celebration, a day of outing. There is another important sage that we celebrate on Lag BaOmer, which, by the way, Lag, I should mention this, Lag means 33, because in Hebrew, the letters of Hebrew, Lamed and Gimel, stand for 30 and 3, and this represents the 33rd day of the counting of days between Passover and Shavuos. On this day, Lag BaOmer, another great sage who happened to be a student of Rabbi Akiva, his name was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yohai. He was a great Kabbalist and actually the author of the Zohar, the first Kabbalist work, and a very, very spiritual person. He passed away, he died on this day, and he asked on the day of his death, it should not be a day of mourning or sadness, but rather be a day of celebration, because this is the day that he is going to cleave to his maker and come closer to God. And so we celebrate that day. There was a famous story of his house being surrounded with a flame of fire, and the fire rose as his soul rose to heaven. And so that's why we make bonfires on this day, and we have cookouts, and we have big parades, and talk about Jewish pride and all the great lines that we try to inspire children to be and to enjoy Judaism. And this year, of course, we can't have big parades because of social distancing, and we can't have big communal barbecues, which we have every single year. So we've become creative in many different ways, and many different centers do different things. Some are doing parades in cars, driving through the community, which we're doing tomorrow as well. Some are doing virtual barbecues, which we are doing as well tomorrow in the afternoon at 5 o'clock, virtual barbecue and bonfire. And we'll sing songs together, play a game together, so we can celebrate Lag BaOmer and remember Lag BaOmer in our own homes. Others are doing a huge performance in their outdoor parking lot, and people are coming in with their cars, like the old style drive-in theaters where you watch the movie from your car. So we're recreating and redesigning Lag BaOmer in a way that can be celebrated today. And for years, it will be remembered. There's different Lag BaOmer, and I'm sure a lot of things we'll be able to learn from.
But at least is it possible to celebrate with barbecue at home for family?
Everybody should pull out their barbecue grill and should buy their kosher hot dogs and hamburgers and all the condiments, of course, kosher, and you can easily get buns and celebrate and zoom into your local Chabad rabbi, celebrate together with the community, feel that you are not alone, but you are together with everybody else within the paradigm, the parameters of social distancing, and celebrate Lag BaOmer the way we always celebrate. Imagine you be in a parade with thousands of children and thousands of people and great actors and clowns and music and everything.
Right now, the next, I believe, coming the holiday which accounted as one of New Year's in Jewish calendar, because it's a day of presenting Torah to Jews, to Moses. Can you talk about or we have something else in the between?
No, actually, the next big holiday, as you mentioned, after Lag BaOmer, which is tomorrow, is Shavuos. Shavuos is the day, as you mentioned, that we receive the 10 Commandments on the Mount Sinai. Everybody knows the famous story with all the Jews as they came out of Egypt. 50 days later, they all stood before Mount Sinai, which is not a very tall mountain, but nonetheless the one chosen by God. And the presence of God was felt with thunder and lightning and a tremendous roar, and the voice of God was heard all over the world of these 10 Commandments. And we celebrate it every year. I'm going to turn around and see what the exact date here is so we can follow it. It will be on the 29th and 30th of this month, the last 2 days of May, Friday
Memorial
and Saturday.
Day weekend.
Is that the Memorial Day weekend? Yep. No, it's the 2 day. It's the end of the Memorial Day week. The Memorial Day is on the 25th, which is the last Monday of the month.
Mhm.
Shavuos is one of the 3 pilgrimage holidays of our Jewish calendar. It's not Rosh Hashanah, it's not Yom Kippur, but it's like the 3 pilgrimage holidays of Passover, Sukkot, and Shavuos. Definitely days that are like Shabbat. We don't do any work, and we celebrate it with tremendous festivities. Prayers in the synagogue. We read the 10 Commandments. And of course, cheese blintzes is very important on Shavuos. More cheese, cheesecakes, cheese quiche, cheese salads, cheese everything. Everything is dairy on Shavuos. And the reason for that is for the very simple, practical situation that took place at Mount Sinai when the Jewish people were getting all their laws from Moses. They didn't all get it at once. It took a while, but suddenly they discovered that there's this law called kosher, and you can only eat kosher food. And all of a sudden they realized that all their pots and pans were not kosher, and they couldn't cook or boil any meat, and they had to resort to simple dairy, which can be eaten uncooked, and they ate dairy. So to remember that, we definitely eat dairy, and we don't regret it, because the dairy food on Shavuos is very tasty. Try it out. If you haven't, we will be happy to deliver to you a very tasteful cheese blintz or a cheese cake, whatever it may be. One of the special highlights of Shavuos.
Like after 50 days, we all suddenly realize what there is kosher rules in our life, which we will take upon ourselves and will continue to keep them.
Right, and as I mentioned, the rules didn't come to us all at once. The Shabbat came first, even before Mount Sinai. Other rules came first, and the rules gradually were given to us throughout the 40 years of the desert, and it took a long time to learn them and to remember them. Of course, the 10 Commandments came on Mount Sinai, but there are more rules to come.
But also Shavuot famous as a holiday of first harvest, which need to be brought to temple, or that's also like agricultural holiday.
Yes, part of that is also on Passover. On Passover, the first wheat was brought, and on Shavuos, the first barley was brought. And no wheat or barley of the new year's crop was allowed to be eaten until the wheat was brought on Passover and the barley was brought on Shavuos. And that was a special offering that was brought with great festivities in the temple when the temple was standing. Yes.
Any other holidays upcoming soon, or it will be next only Tisha B'Av, and between that, nothing special happened in Jewish calendar?
Well, unless you have a birthday coming up then, which is a very special holiday. Everybody's birthday is very, very special in their lives, and they, to them, it's a day of kingdom. They're the king of the day, and they have the power of blessing to bless themselves and everybody around them. But with the exception of a birthday, that's going to be the last major holiday before Rosh Hashanah. And as you mentioned, during the summer months, there will be several fast days. One of them is well known as Tisha B'Av, the day that the temple in Jerusalem was burnt. Both of them were burnt on the same day in 500 and something years apart.
Rabbi, I know what all these holidays, unfortunately, we cannot celebrate together. We can celebrate it as a community, as a Jewish peoplehood, as Jews, of course, like alone together. What's your advice right now to people who staying at home and missing lots of social activity, including coming to synagogue?
Well, that's a very good
How
question.
to stay healthy, let's say mind healthy.
Well, actually, I found that the people who are home are the healthiest. Because those who are unfortunately in nursing homes or are in other places are at greater risk. So stay home, and that the more you stay home, the healthier you will be. But community is indeed very important in Jewish life. There's no question about that. And as time has gone on since we had to close, more and more people are coming more and more often and telling us how much they miss coming to shul and being together with the community. There's no doubt the community is very important. But actually, what most people don't pay much attention to is that as important as community is, the home observance is even more important. And I tell people all the time that even though we cannot come to shul, to the synagogue, and we cannot hear the Torah, we will not be able to hear the 10 Commandments as we usually do every year. Still, we can put on our talit and bring our siddur into the house and do the prayers and follow the same songs and melodies that we do in the synagogue, and bring in the holiday traditions to the home. You don't only have to get your cheese blitzes in the synagogue or your cheesecake in the synagogue. You can do that at home. You don't only have to have the challah and the vodka l'chaim in the synagogue. You can do that at home and bring and strengthen the Jewish observance with your family at home. The home has always been the center of Jewish tradition. The synagogue is meant to support our observance at home. But having said that, it's definitely, for some people, it's easy. If you have a very strong Jewish life, then it's easy to have that at home. But if a lot of it is dependent on learning from other people, it's hard to maintain that. I always, as a Chabad rabbi, I try to help people bring their Shabbat and holiday to their home. Before Shabbat, I try to bring them a challah or a little bit of grape juice and another teaching that will bring some of that spirit to the home. I'm sure before Shavuos, maybe we'll bring them some cheese items so they can feel some of that at home and they won't feel left out. It is definitely our obligation as a rabbi to try and help people bring and are able to observe their holiday at home. And at the same time, we have to try to do whatever we can. And if we are able to Zoom together, then that's even greater. So on Lag Boba, we can Zoom together. On Shavuos, it becomes more complicated because it's like Shabbat, and we cannot do it. Not most people don't do Zoom on Shabbat and on the holidays, but we can do before or after. And these are definitely challenging times, but with every challenge comes an opportunity. And these are opportunities we should engage in and explore.
Yeah, and of course, Shavuot, as you mentioned, it's a holiday when you eat daily, prepare daily dishes like blintzes. And here, of course, because our program name is Всё о яичнице, everything about fried eggs, I would like to ask you how to make your fried eggs 100% kosher, maybe with dairy, maybe without, and what is, I know you told me what you are not very much egg person, but anyway, in your family, you have some style of fried eggs. Can you tell us a little bit, a recipe or tradition in your family?
As I said, I'm not a very big egg person. And generally, I'm a very easy eater. I'm not a very picky eater at all. Whatever you give me, I'll eat. And I have definitely more favorite foods than eggs. I have a little bit of an allergy to eggs myself, but I eat it anyway if it's there. Fried eggs, I like fried eggs. When I was a kid, well, not as much a kid, but a little older on, I used to like my simple fried eggs in a frying pan with a little bit of oil or margarine or whatever it is, or even butter, and just eat it, which is good. Put it in a sandwich. I like that a lot as well. Good question about how to make it kosher. That's a very, very good question. You imagine eggs would be kosher because most eggs come from chickens, and chickens are kosher. And eggs from chickens are kosher. If the eggs come from a non-kosher bird, the eggs won't be kosher. But the problem with an egg is that it may have a blood spot inside. If the egg has developed to a point where it's beginning to develop some life in it, it may have a little bit of a blood spot, which is a kosher problem with an egg. And before we use any egg, whether it's for fried eggs, whether it's for baking, whether it's for cooking, if we are using a non-boiled egg, we have to break the egg in half and check the egg yolk inside to make sure there's no red spot. And that's what we do all the time before we use any raw eggs. And that's a very good question that has a very important answer.
There is no blood at all, or as I remember, it could be like 60th part of something, like you count of little.
If there is a tiny blood spot, the whole thing is thrown out.
Not.
And as a general rule, if you go to the store in New England, brown eggs is very common. Brown eggs typically have more blood spots than white eggs. That's why I will never buy brown eggs. I always get white eggs. Brown eggs are very prone to blood spots. That's a general rule.
I see. Okay, no blood in your eggs. That's what Rabbi suggestion to you. I'm suggesting to you too. Rabbi, I hope you will have a very nice and happy Lag BaOmer. You will have a parade, bonfire, barbecue, zooming together with people who come to your shul. With I don't know, can I call them congregants or just members of the shul? How you account people in Shaloh House? Are they congregants? Are they just the fellow Jews?
Yeah, people ask me, Rabbi, how many members do you have? I say I don't have any members. Every Jew in Stoughton is my member. Every Jew is a candidate to come. As you said, a fellow Jew, yes. I don't like to use the word congregants either. Just fellow Jew who comes and participates. And we have a lot of people who come, as you know, on Shabbos, and it's very, very nice.
Yeah, that's also like Center Makor. We doesn't have any members. We're open for all fellow Jews and all people who just want to participate or explore itself as a musician, artist, or a creative person. Rabbi, thank you very much for your participation. Stay healthy, stay safe, and hope Shaloh House will open its doors very soon to reinstate prayers and gathering for people. And if you live in South area, maybe you will consider to once visit Shaloh House. It has nice location, nice pond next to Shaloh House with two nice white swamps in it. Okay, Rabbi, your last couple words at the end of our program to our viewers.
I didn't think of this, but if you asked me to say a few last words, first of all, thank you very much for your invitation to everyone to Shaloh House, and want to give a lot of credit to the Center Makor, who do a lot of great work as well, engaging so many people from our Russian communities in the greater Boston area. Let me give some final thoughts that I always preach about where we are today, and maybe something we can learn from our experience that we're going through in these days with Corona, COVID-19. I come from a very different perspective than most other people, because I have a strong religious conviction and a strong godly presence in my world, and I try to enlighten people to realize that we need to learn from this experience that we and all our experts don't really have all the answers in life, and we've seen this very clearly. All our politicians, all our medical experts really got caught by surprise and really didn't have, struggling to get the answers, and the world collapsed, economy collapsed, everything collapsed. It comes to help us realize that there is only one thing that we can truly rely on that has all the answers, and that is God. And we need to strengthen our resolve, strengthen our belief, strengthen our faith, strengthen our trust in the only one whom we can truly trust and believe. And there's nothing wrong with economy, there's nothing wrong with medicine. These are all very, very important services in life, and we have to engage in them and follow the rules as well. But we have to realize that medicine and economy and politics are all opportunities given to us by God, and we have to fully acknowledge that and put our full trust and faith in Him. And I truly believe that the more we do this and the more we realize this, the faster we can overcome our challenges in this world today, because our challenges are not only physical, but they're also spiritual, and they definitely have a lesson for us. And if we take this seriously, especially as we begin to open up our lives and our economy and our world, we have to do this together with the realization and the awareness that the ultimate answer to everything is God's presence in this world, and we have to give our first credit to Him before we move on to anything else we do in life. So let us take this seriously, and let's take away all the worry and problems that we have today. Let's put our faith where it's supposed to be, and we raise our hands and say, God, whatever you want, I'm here, and I follow your lead. And He is very benevolent and very good and very caring, and He'll heal everyone and bless everyone and give us all what we need to the fullest for ourselves, our children, our friends, our neighbors, and everybody around us.
My dear friends, thank you, Rabbi. I just would like to remind what our guest today was Rabbi Mendel Gurkow, Rabbi of Shaloh House in South area in Stoughton. Rabbi, thank you very much. I wish you stay well and healthy and safe. Just thank you for being with us, and have a nice holidays upcoming.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. I appreciate it. Thank you.